Last time we talked, we had an unanswered question. We were left wondering, why do things in my life not look as good as they did in the garden? Why are things in our world different than the way that God made them? And remember, I said when we have questions that don't seem to be answered right away, we should hold on to them and see if they get answered somewhere else. But we don't have to wait too long for the answer to this question. It gets answered right on the next chapter. So let's jump in and see what happens next in the story of the Bible. The Lord God put the man in the Garden of Eden. He put him there to farm its land and take care of it. The Lord God gave the man a command. He said, "You may eat fruit from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you do, you will certainly die." The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I'll make a helper who is just right for him." The Lord God had formed all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He had made all of them out of the ground. He brought them to the man to see what names he would give them, and the name the man gave each living creature became its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, all the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But Adam didn't find a helper that was just right for him. So the Lord God caused him to fall into a deep sleep. While the man was sleeping, the Lord God took out one of the man's ribs. Then the Lord God closed the opening in the man's side. Then the Lord God made a woman. He made her from the rib he had taken out of the man. And the Lord God brought her to the man. The man said, "Her bones have become my bones. Her body has become my body. She will be called woman because she was taken out of a man." That's why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife. The two of them become one. Adam and his wife were both naked. They didn't feel any shame. The serpent was more clever than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. The serpent said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat fruit from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. Do not even touch it. If you do, you will die." "You will certainly not die," the serpent said to the woman. "God knows that when you eat fruit from that tree, you will know things you have never known before. Like God, you'll be able to tell the difference between good and evil." The woman saw that the tree's fruit was good to eat and pleasing to look at. She also saw that it would make a person wise. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Then both of them knew things they had never known before. They realized they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made clothes for themselves. Then the man and his wife heard the Lord God walking in the garden. It was during the coolest time of the day. They hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called out to the man. "Where are you?" he asked. "I heard you in the garden," the man answered. "I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." The Lord God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten fruit from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" The man said, "It's the fault of the woman that you put here with me. She gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What have you done?" The woman said, "The serpent tricked me. That's why I ate the fruit." So the Lord God spoke to the serpent. He said, "Because you've done this, you are set apart from all livestock and all wild animals. I'm putting a curse on you. You will crawl on your belly. You will eat dust all the days of your life. I will make you and the woman hate each other. Your children and her children will be enemies. Her son will crush your head and you will bite his heel." The Lord God said to the woman, "I will increase your pain when you give birth. You will be in great pain when you have children. You will long for your husband and he will rule over you." The Lord God said to Adam, "You listened to your wife's suggestion. You ate fruit from the tree I warned you about. I said, you must not eat its fruit. So I'm putting a curse on the ground because of what you did. All the days of your life you will have to work hard. It will be painful for you to get food from the ground. You will eat plants from the field, even though the ground produces thorns and prickly weeds. You will have to work hard and sweat a lot to produce the food that you eat. You are made out of the ground. You will return to it when you die. You're dust, and you will return to dust." Adam named his wife Eve. She would become the mother of every living person. The Lord God made clothes out of animal skins for Adam and his wife to wear. The Lord God said, "Just like one of us, the man can now tell the difference between good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out and pick fruit from the tree of life and eat it. If he does, he'll live forever." So the Lord God drove the man out of the Garden of Eden. He sent the man to farm the ground he had made him from. The Lord God drove him out and then placed angels on the east side of the garden. He also placed there a flaming sword that flashed back and forth. The angels and the sword guarded the way to the tree of life. So there we have it. Sin is the reason. Sin is the reason that things are different now than they were. Sin is the reason things are difficult now. Even though we haven't come across the word sin yet, we're shown what it is. Adam and Eve chose themselves over God. That's what sin is. Now, as we move into the story of the Bible, we're going to see more and more what God's will, what his plan is for people, and how they live with him and with each other. But for now, let's leave sin right there. It's choosing ourselves over God. It's knowing what God has asked of us and choosing to do something different. But Adam and Eve didn't just go and defy God all on their own, right? No, the serpent tempted them. The serpent actually took God's command and twisted it. It sounds similar to what God said, but if you go and look, it's actually not the same. So the serpent twisted God's words to tempt them. And the serpent also undermined Adam and Eve's trust in God. The serpent made them think that God was holding out on them. Like God didn't have the best in mind for them. Like God didn't actually love them. And how often is that the case for us too? We're tempted not to trust God. And not to trust that he has the best in mind for us. To not trust that he loves us. We also see that the serpent flat out lied. He told Eve that if she ate the fruit, she would be like God. But we've already seen that Adam and Eve were already like God. In Genesis 1, we're told that Adam and Eve both were made in the image and likeness of God. And all too often, we forget that that's the truth. So after the first sin, God goes looking for Adam and Eve. And he doesn't go looking for them because he didn't know where they were. No, he did it to show them and to show us something. We're going to see it time and time again in the Bible, but here, this is the first one. God goes looking after people. God pursues them in their sinfulness. God went looking for Adam and Eve to show them that he loves us, that he cares for us, and that he hasn't abandoned us. God does ask them some questions though. Where are you? Who told you? What happened? And the pride in Adam and Eve's responses show us a lot. Adam said, well, Eve did it. He blamed Eve, and he blamed God for giving him Eve. Eve blamed the serpent. They just kept passing it on down the line. They kept blaming others. They blamed God. It was pride that got in the way. No one was ready to say they're sorry. And that's going to be a common theme as we move through the Bible. But it's a common theme in our own lives too. All too often, we don't want to take responsibility. All too often, we'd rather play the blame game. All too often, we'd rather blame God or other people instead of just saying we're sorry. So there are repercussions. There's a punishment for the sin that Adam and Eve did. And that's only fair, right? We all get that justice calls for something to happen. When something wrong is done, something has to happen in order for it to be just. So if you break the law, you go to jail. If you defy your parents, you get grounded or a timeout. We get this idea. But we learn something about God in this. God, even in his punishment, is merciful. God told Adam and Eve that if they ate the fruit, they would die. But they don't die right away, right? Mercy. God also doesn't make them live in the broken, hurtful, sinful world forever. Again, God is a God of mercy. And with that, Adam and Eve are sent out of the garden. It's really sad. And this whole scene leaves us with some more questions. How do we get back to the garden? How do we get back to the days that people walked and talked with God? That really is the story of the rest of the Bible. So let's figure it out together. As we move through the Bible, let's find out what God's plan for fixing what sin broke is.